today with my friend Charlotte Thomason, and we are going to be talking about Charlotte's latest book, Light in the Darkness, which is a devotional for trauma survivors. So if you have watched my channel before, I'm sure you know who Charlotte is. She is someone I kind of started in this streaming journey with, and if you're joining us here from one of Charlotte's channels, welcome. I'm glad you could join us today. So Charlotte, would you like to introduce yourself and share a little bit about who you are and what this book is and why you wrote it?
Okay, yeah. So I am a retired social worker. I have a master's degree in social work from the University of Texas at Austin. I have a Master of Arts degree in cultural apologetics from Houston Christian University, and I worked in the field of social work, particularly in child abuse and neglect, for over 35 years. And I'm also a survivor of childhood trauma. And I thank you again, Carla, for having me on here today. I'm very excited about this. We have had quite an adventure as far as the live stream, and I'm just so thankful that you are in my life and that you have taken time to interview me today about my book. So, Light in the Darkness is actually of the result of part of my healing process, but I also wanted to share some daily devotionals that I have shared over the years with a dear friend of mine, Cheryl Luke, who is a mentor, a very close friend. We share things daily with each other. She is my confidant many times in my life. She has been there. I know I can call on her for support and prayer. All I have to do is send her a text, and I know that she is there, and she has so touched my life over the years. And about 4 years ago, she was going through a rather difficult time, and I decided that I was going to start sending her a scripture with a little bit of a devotional every day to just help get her through that season. And that has never stopped. I continue to do that every day, and the devotionals that are in Light in the Darkness come directly from those daily devotionals that I sent to Cheryl. But also, one of the things that I have done over the last 4 years is I started posting a daily devotional across all of my social media with a scripture and then just a little statement. And I have gotten so much feedback from people who have told me that that really ministered to them. And so I put together this book for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to share hope with trauma survivors, because trauma survivors, and really the book can be helpful to anyone, but trauma survivors often have difficulty connecting with God and understanding how God could allow certain things to happen and continue to happen. So I wanted to write something that was very simple, but could be helpful to those individuals, in giving them some very concrete yet simple tools to maybe on a daily basis connect to God. And with my thoughts on that and how I was able to do it. And they're very short, but each devotional also includes a page for reflection where I ask a question that applies what the devotional said. And then there's also space for prayer, to actually ask God or thank God for certain things. And so it really gets the individuals out of just thinking about being in the recovery process, and helps them think outside of themselves, and hopefully will give them a little bit of hope. So that's kind of an overview of me and what the book is about.
Oops. Sorry, we're doing a new layout, and I couldn't quite get the book down in time. So there were a couple things that you were talking about, like some thoughts that came to my mind. You're talking about how this actually started out of devotionals that you wrote for a friend, and I think sometimes we underestimate how important friends are, in our faith, especially in the U.S. I think we have kind of more of an individualistic faith. We say, "Oh, it's just me and Jesus," and so I think a lot of times we don't. Unless if you've really been in a good group and really practiced it, I think we underestimate how important it is to be in community with other people and be in fellowship with other people and have people that are able to help you walk through you with it, or walk through it with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, friendship and connections are so important for everyone, but particularly I think if you're struggling with something, or you're in recovery, or you're in the healing process from trauma, having a close group of people that you can reach out to, and they're going to be there for you no matter what happens, whether you've had a relapse or you're just struggling, or you even want even just to share successes and victories with. It's so important to the healing process. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I sent Charlotte a list of questions. These normally go we have an overview of what we're going to talk about, and then it just kind of goes where it goes. But Charlotte is one of the people that I call when I have meltdown. She talks me down off the ledge sometimes, and gives me some good advice. And I've been helping some Afghan Christians who evacuated to Pakistan last year. Starting in October, this all started, but it's been so interesting to see how they understand their faith, because they became Christians in a country where they're really it's even before the Taliban took over in 2021, they were still at risk as Christians, right? They we're still at risk for persecution as Christians, particularly a lot of the people that I'm associated with, because they're minorities, ethnic minorities. And so we've had to have a lot of discussions about some things that I just kind of take for granted, like, right. How do you observe Easter? Because some of them just they were kind of secret Christians and literally just meeting with a couple of people, and having to be so cautious about who they associate with and interact with. But there's a huge difference. I mean, I think this is part of what's really highlighted this to me, is seeing the difference between the people who are isolated and alone and who aren't connected in community, and people who, they're in a bad situation. It's not a good situation for anybody, but the difference between the people who are isolated and the people who are in a community is so stark. It's it's unbelievable, the difference that it makes.
Exactly. Yeah, it makes so much difference. And I think a lot of times, I know for me, when I was early in my healing process, I did isolate sometimes, and because I felt like that I wasn't worthy, I guess, of connecting with people. And I was also very afraid of being judged. So because of some of the things that I was doing, and so I would isolate. But fortunately, even in those early days, I had several friends who would reach out to me, and they would not allow me to isolate, and they would check on me. And I think that is also important, that you have people in your life that are connected enough to you, and you are to them, that they're going to check on you if they don't hear from you, or if you don't respond to their text messages or those kinds of things, because that is what keeps us connected to each other. And, kind of tying that into what the devotional is about, that's really one of the purposes of writing this devotional was to help people not isolate from God, because
Yeah.
it's so easy to do that when things have gone wrong in your life, or when you're really struggling, and because you do feel like God maybe is going to judge you, or he can't forgive you, or he can't possibly love you, because that's how I felt. And I
Hmm.
just remember so many times throughout my healing process where I would just cry out to God, and I would think that, you can't possibly love me. And just having certain, even in the early days, I had scriptures that I would say, had scriptures that friends would send to me. And that is just such a powerful reminder of how important that connection to God is. And so the devotional is really very a concrete, simple way of having that daily connection with God and reminding yourself, because the devotionals are about hope and joy and love and peace, and those are topics that are hard when you're going through recovery, or when you're healing from trauma, because those are sometimes foreign topics to you and you don't even remember that they exist. And so my hope is that people will read the devotional and be able on some level to reconnect with God, because it's not just reading, it's also being interactive, because I ask questions on, how do you see this happening in your life, or when has God done this, or so it gets you thinking about your connection to God. And even if you're struggling with whether he even cares, or if he even exists, I think that the way that the devotional is written will at least give you a little bit of hope, and moving in the direction of, okay, well, maybe, he is there and he does care. So it's just really trying to get people, no matter where they are in the healing process, to know that there is a very simple tool. It's a tool, really, to keep that connection with God. Because even if you don't have, there's been so many times in my life where I've been in a really tough spot, and I will text a certain friend, and they don't respond because, things are going on in their life. And I don't despair in that, but I am like, so I keep going down the list and nobody responds. And then I finally sit and think, oh, well, God's here, right? He
Yeah.
never is not there. And so I'll sit and I'll read a scripture, or I'll read a devotional. And, I start my day every day reading a couple of devotionals, and I post a morning meditation every single day, because I know that the best way to begin my day is in communication with God, no matter how I'm feeling. Because sometimes I really honestly don't want to do it, but I do it anyway. And I think that's sometimes what's important. And so light in the darkness is really a way of helping people do that in a real simple way. So, yeah.
Yeah, so Charlotte does quarterly workshops on her channel at Charlotte Thomason, and the last one was Equipped to Thrive. And what did you say? What's the next one coming up in June?
It's equipped for the summer.
Equipped for the summer. Okay.
Yeah.
And she always tells me, oh, you need a journal, because like sometimes this is a story. We're totally going off our script, but I was a virtual host for her workshop or her conference in September, and I was thinking, I'm helping her out, and then as we're going through it, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I needed this more than I thought I did. Maybe there's more stuff that I need to work through, and there have just been things that have been coming up lately, and issues that I thought I had dealt with. And Charlotte's like, you need to journal. I'm like, I don't know, I can't do it. But, having a devotional like this is like, it kind of helps guide that process. If you have difficulties like me, I don't have problems doing devotionals myself. Like, I just read the Bible and I have thoughts, but sometimes it might be helpful to have thoughts guided in a particular way.
Yeah. And so, and that's really a good point, because a lot of people, I know a lot of people read devotionals, and that's excellent. But what I wanted to do was to add the additional component to apply it, to make it applicable to your day, and to not just, it's kind of like, you connect with God, you read the scripture, you read the little thoughts that I write, but then so what, right? How does that
Mm-hmm.
apply to your day? How does that apply to your life? And so it takes it to a different level and allows you then to do some introspection. None of the questions are like super deep. At least I don't think they are. I mean, you read them. I don't know. They're kind of deep, but they're not,
Not
they're just,
complicated.
no, they're not complicated. They're very simple. And the idea is to just give you, one of the things that we did in one of the courses HCU is, in one of the courses I had, one of the assignments was to have a 20-minute period of silence and then to write a reflection on that. And that was, it was revealing. I mean, I used to do that all the time, but I had not done it in years. And it was very informative because it really helped me see that especially in the culture that we're in right now, we're just so busy. We get input all the time. And we don't take time to just be still and to listen to God, to listen to that still small voice. And so for me, that experience really taught me that I do need to be still and I do need to have moments where I'm just listening. And so I've really tried to do that in 2 or 3 times a week. I will have 15 minutes where I'm just still. I turn off my phone. I don't have music going. Nothing. I'm just sitting. And it is hard. It is so difficult because I want to sit there and pray and ask God for this, ask God for that. And, I kind of feel in my heart that he's saying, hush and listen, because he just wants to. And sometimes, I don't really hear a verbal thing, but I have thoughts. I have insights. I have a sense of peace and calm because I am sitting in his presence and I'm not just engaging with him in a verbal conversation, and so I think part of what I want to do with this devotional is to give people maybe little prompts, I guess, for those times, right? As they sit with God, is that, to just be still and to pay attention to whatever the devotional, however it speaks to you. And I think that's so important in our society, in our culture today of immediate gratification, where we want something right now and we can't wait. And it really teaches us that patience and that calm. And so that's part of what I really want to happen for the people that purchase the devotional and read it. So.
Yeah, the other thing too, I think in our culture is that there's so much stimulation.
Yes.
And so much distraction. And so not only does it block, it kind of blocks you off from God because you don't have a time to sit and be still and really hear, right? But also I think it blocks you off from yourself. And so if you're not, a lot of times we try to distract rather than looking at things with that are issues that need to be addressed. So if we're not ever really in tune with ourselves either, we're not going to be aware of or identify those red flags. C.S. Lewis talks about, I can't remember if this is in Meditations in Tool Shed or not, but he said one of the fastest ways to overcome like an issue or an emotion or some sort of vice is to really examine it and look at it and say, okay, well, why do I do this? What is the emotion behind this? And really like looking at that thing, because sometimes I think we react and not realize it, like, oh, this is just me. No, there's a stimulus that you're responding to.
Right.
And so we
exactly.
need to adjust that. And I think the biggest thing for me, really in identifying manipulation and abusive behavior was recognizing how it makes me feel.
Yes.
Is I have to, like, thinking through something. I was in a coaching program one time and they said, you're a ruminator. You have to like think through things. And so in the moment, like if somebody's immediately, I have to it may take like 24, 48 hours before mentally, logically, I think through, oh yeah, that wasn't appropriate behavior, way past it. But I know how I feel in that moment, and that can help
Exactly.
me,
Yeah.
okay, set some boundaries to that
Yeah.
behavior.
Yes. Well, the thing is, what you're talking about is actually, you said the journaling thing didn't really work for you, but you just
I
kind of
just resist
described.
it.
You
I
just did
resist
it.
it.
Yeah, you did. You did. Yeah, you just did. So, because that's exactly what it is. And, it's really about kind of just getting in tune with, your feelings are off. So then the next step is to, okay, why? What happened that
Mhm.
caused that? And then, and that's a whole nother conversation. But, I just think that it's important to have as many tools as you can to get you through those moments. And, this devotional is obviously not, a cure-all for anything. It is certainly not that, but it is a tool, hopefully, that people can get and read and have another way of reconnecting to God and maybe thinking about their relationship with Him and doing it on a daily basis. Now, there's only 25 devotionals, and it's 4 weeks of devotionals with 6 days, and each week has a theme, and but it is. You can go back and repeat them because
Mhm.
life does that, and like I said, it is specifically geared to trauma survivors because there is a uniqueness in some ways about our connection to God, but anyone could really benefit uh, from the devotionals because we all, I think, struggle at times with our connection to God, and that's really what it's about, is really reconnecting and seeing how God through his through the scriptures helps us learn about love, hope, peace, and joy. And because those are like the four elements that I think are the most critical in our relationship with God. So, yeah.
Yeah, before we go on to our scheduled questions, one of the things I think that what you just said, these having these emotions, this it's a state of being, as we're going through life, and it doesn't have to be, it's not dependent on circumstances, and that is the point of Jesus coming in, you know, uh, dying on the cross for us and walking, living fully as human and walking through this human experience and taking on and experiencing everything that we do. It's so that he could enable us to have victory over those things that are keeping us from that experience, from being joyful, from having hope,
Yes.
from
Yes.
living, being in relationship with other people. It's for, I think, we look at eternity and think that was the whole point. The whole point is, being God's imagers here on earth. Like, it's so we can live a life that we can be in joy, that we can enjoy, because, God, John 10:10, the enemy does not come except to steal, kill, and destroy, but I've come that you might have life and have it abundantly. And so it's for today. It's
Yep.
for now.
Yes. Yes.
So in week 1, the theme is hope. And this is a quote that from that passage, and it's talking about, oh shoot, I went too far on my slides. Let's see. Okay. Hope is a feeling, not something tangible, but a feeling. You can't touch it, wrap it up, and put a bow on it, but you can experience it. Hope allows you to look toward the future rather than staying stuck in the past. A feeling of desire and an expectation for something to happen opens the door to looking forward instead of backwards. And you had, in order for thing to have hope, you have to know and believe that things can be different.
Yes.
that things can change.
Or at least, well, yeah, I think for me, especially when I was a child and things were so bad, because the abuse that I sustained or endured was just horrendous. And it was from multiple perpetrators. It was sexual, physical, spiritual, emotional, and yeah, beyond what most people can imagine, actually. And so in the midst of that, uh, I always maintained my faith in Jesus, and he was an important part of my life. And I would often go to him and talk to him. And when I dissociated, I would go to his arms. And so that my faith never really diminished. I mean, I got angry at him and wondered why he was allowing it to continue, but I had hope because of my faith. And the hope was not so much that everything would end, but the hope was, it just gave me a hope of the possibility that something would be better in the future. And so it's not always an assurance. I mean, it is an assurance in a way that I just had hope that things could be better, right? And that sustained me so many times throughout my life. It sustained me in my healing because I had hope. I had hope that, okay, I know that this isn't the ultimate plan, and I know how I feel when I connect with Jesus. I know how I feel when I'm in his arms. And so I know that there is something better. And that gave me the courage to survive, really. And so that's, hope is not something tangible. It's a feeling. And it really is knowing or having a sense, an assurance that there is a better future. There is something better down the road. And you may not see it, you may not feel it, and in the moment you may not believe it, but if you can hang on to that hope, then that's what's going to keep you moving forward, instead of just looking at all the bad things that have happened to you or that are happening to you. It will help you then continue to move forward rather than staying stuck.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I added myself back in here. So, I think that is, Jesus himself, like when he came, he was a way that he could give hope, right? Because he came and, he lived as someone who lived fully, staying connected with God, staying connected with other people. And he had hope in the final vindication,
right,
from God, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he did not overthrow the Roman government. He did not, in his, it wasn't like Pilate got taken down and Jesus was put up, but the plan was different. But it was a better plan than most of his followers were expecting, right? They had no idea.
Exactly.
They had no idea what was coming.
Right.
But I think that is, there's so much in the world that is hard situations, right? That we want to just be fixed. But even in the badness, like in the end, there can be good. I think that's...
Well, and I think part of that is, I think that's really important, because I think part of, I think you brought up a good point in that, the outcome is not always what we expect, because in our humanness, we have this idea of how things should go, right? At least from our perspective. But God has a plan, and his plan is going to be the one that is carried out. And it may not look exactly like we think it should, but it is his plan. And I think it's important as you're struggling or as you're healing, that you take the time to get connected and to renew your hope, and to be able to literally tell yourself, this isn't what I expected, but I'm going to trust that this is what you want for me and that you're going to get me through it. And that's hard. But again, the
Yeah.
devotionals in that first week on hope address that very issue and give you some food for thought in processing that.
Yeah, I have to relate everything to the Afghan situation because that has just been so much part of my life right now. But it's it again, it's like seeing people in different situations,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them no connection, not really seeing, just not seeing any movement in their own situation, and it is like not seeing a way out
Mm-hmm.
and how things can get any better. And it's hard to have hope in those situations. But again, going back to, when you're in community and you can see people moving through it,
Mm-hmm.
then you can believe, okay, well, maybe this will happen for me too.
Yeah, and I think that's part of, that is actually a big part of what I do with my life right now because, you know, I've been doing this for a very long time, and I first started uh, my healing process when I was 34, and that was almost 40 years ago. And, so I've probably experienced pretty much what anyone who is struggling right now has, and I know how hard it is, and I know how difficult it is, and how much pain is there. And in no way am I trying to minimize that and say, oh, it's all going to be fun and glorious, because even now, I still have moments when I struggle. I have moments when certain events will trigger emotions, or I'll be tempted to act out in a certain way, and I still may. So what I share in the devotional and also in my memoir is my journey of how I develop the things I need to stay hopeful, I guess, and
Mhm.
to even in the midst of all of that. And that my biggest, I think, desire is to share my experiences, and in order to give others hope that are where I was, 30, 40 years ago, and to maybe help them not have to go through as much of a struggle as I did, because I didn't necessarily have that. And I had people around me, I had good care, but it was in the 80s and 90s, and we didn't know a lot. Post traumatic stress disorder was brand new. People really didn't understand it. It was mostly dealt with Vietnam War veterans, and
Mhm.
the whole concept of PTSD for sexual abuse or any kind of other trauma was really an unknown thing. And so it was really difficult in that community to have anyone that really understood or could help me through that process. And so I really want to be able to share through what I've learned in my education and in my own experience to help others have a better journey, actually, a less difficult journey. And not everything that I suggest or that I talk about is for everyone, but I just, I am on my YouTube channel and in the workshops that I do, and in my memoir and in this devotional, my central theme is really giving people hope. I think, and that there is hope that things will get better. And I'm a living proof of that, because I'm live a very content life right now, and I enjoy life. And I haven't experienced what I would call any major emotional or mental health issues in decades, literally in decades. And so I was in bad shape, and you can buy my or
Oh,
read my
yeah.
memoir to find that out. But yeah, it was bad, and I just really want people to know that, and to understand through my experience that there is hope. You can get through it.
Yeah, this is Charlotte's memoir. It came out, was it 2 years ago now?
Yes, it was two
Two
years
years
ago.
ago now. What kind of love is this? Finding God in the darkness. This is an account of uh, her experiences growing up, and when you read it, I would just say I was a beta reader on the book, and I had to take breaks reading it. And I don't know if it was because I know Charlotte and personally, and that personal connection. And I don't know if that upset me more about it, but I think I do know that when I sent it to my mom, she said she had to take breaks too.
Yeah,
Because it was a little, but it's good to read it because then you can see that was then, this is now. So as bad as it was, as bad as what she went through, I know there's a lot of people with some very and been through a lot of extreme things, but uh, we won't get into specifics, but Charlotte shared with me that there's some things that, as bad as some of the things are in that book, there's some that are even worse that she didn't include. So it's if she can be here and be telling her story today, you can too. You can too.
Yeah. And I think, what's important, just as a caveat for the book, for the memoir, is I really did not go into graphic detail with the abuse. I mean, what happened. It's very apparent what happened, but I wrote it through the lens of whatever age I was during any particular incident. And the thread through it is how my faith sustained me and how God was a constant presence in my life, even though I really couldn't understand why he loved me or that he loved me. And I think that was so critical to my healing. And but I did not want it to, it can be triggering to people just because what's happening or what has happened, but I do not describe the abuse in graphic detail at all. And that was intentional because I didn't want the focus to be on that. I wanted the focus to be on my journey to healing. So I do want to say that because I know there's a lot of books out there that are about abuse, and the descriptions are very, very graphic. And most of those I can't read. So, yeah.
So, one other thing that we're going to talk about is how important it is to recognize your progress while you're in the middle of the process, because healing isn't overnight.
Exactly.
And there's stages and there's kind of a rhythm to it. But Charlotte had her last virtual event, Equipped to Thrive. They had a segment on this about as you're going through the process, what it looks like, things to remember. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've touched on it a little bit already, but basically, for me, I'm going to share this little bit because it's in the memoir, but I think it's kind of a funny thing, and I think people can relate to this who are just starting in the healing process if they're geared like I am. And so when I first started into healing from my childhood trauma, first I want to point out that there was several years that I literally forgot everything that had happened to me, and I didn't remember. My body remembered and I acted out sexually, but I didn't understand where that was coming from. And then there came a time where I did remember and the memories just started flooding. And so I started into therapy, and it was about this time of year. It was in the first part of March, I think, or the end of February, somewhere around in there. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to be done by Easter. That was my idea, that it was going to take 2 months or so and I would be fine. And I really said that to my therapist, and she just looked at me like I was really crazy, because that's just not going to happen. I said, no, it will happen. And the result of that is that I pushed myself way too hard and I forced memories. It ended up where I was non-functional, and I ended up in a psychiatric hospital, and then in a day program. And for a year, I was in a outpatient day program at a local psychiatric hospital. And so in that setting, I couldn't work. I went there every single day, and I was able to do things that I hadn't done in a while. My focus was, we did crafts and art, and I love that. I love that. But I had been so focused on just all the mess that I wasn't even allowing myself to do that. And so I say that even in that stage of healing, I could look at, at the moment, I probably didn't really realize that, but looking back, that was good for me, because it allowed me to activate a different part of my brain that I hadn't been using. It allowed me to have a break from all the trauma, resolving the trauma, and it just allowed me to kind of be a kid again in a way. And so as you're healing, you have to look at the little victories. For me, thriving in those early days was sometimes going a day with only 1 or 2 flashbacks, or 1 or 2 dissociative episodes, or going through a whole day without suicidal thoughts. That was progress. And so you have to celebrate those little victories so that you can give yourself credit for the work that you're doing. And as you do that, then you can continue to move forward. Where if you, Carla was saying, she ruminates, well, that's a big part of post-traumatic stress disorder, is you ruminate over everything. And if you can take a break from that, and maybe even at the end of every day or at the end of every week, you can say, well, this week I had 3 days where I didn't dissociate, or I didn't have a flashback, or I was able to stop it and bring myself out of it. And so even in the early pieces of it, you can find ways to celebrate that you are moving forward. And I think that's what I'm talking about, is that no matter where you are in the healing process, it's important that you look at the victories and that you celebrate those victories in a healthy way, that you celebrate every milestone, every little victory. One of my biggest issues was sexual addiction, and I looked at porn, I hooked up with guys, all kinds of things. And so victory for me was when I was able to not get into a chat, or I was able to not go to an adult website, and that I was able to not do that, or that when I was tempted to do that, I reached out to a friend. And so it's celebrating the things that you do well and not condemning yourself when you slip up. But when you do slip up, to reach out to someone so they can hold you accountable and help you through that struggle. Or maybe to reach out to someone before you slip and when you're struggling. And so as you progress, those victories get more and more frequent, and the negative behaviors get less and less. And so thriving, healing is a process. It's not something that happens overnight. And I'm here to tell you, I was not done by Easter of that year or the next year. It took several years before I was really at a place where I felt like I was fully functional again. Now, I did go back to work, but I was still struggling. And you just have to really be able to look at, okay, what did I do well today? And sometimes it's moment by moment, because when you're in the midst of healing and flashbacks are coming, 20 times a day, having them only happen 10 times a day is pretty phenomenal, and it feels pretty good. And so just celebrate your progress, and make sure you have somebody in your life that you can celebrate it with. Even just saying, hey, I didn't do this today. And so they can just say, yay, you, or something like that. So, and in today's smartphone era, that's really easy to do. You can just send them a text. And, I didn't have that. We still had the phones on the wall with the cord. And so there wasn't that. I could call someone, but there wasn't a way to immediately reach someone, and you have that today, and I think that's just amazing. So it is a process, and even now, like I said, I do. Well, yes, as Carlos just said, or an emoji. You can send an emoji, and then people know, and they can respond back to you with an emoji. And there's just so many ways that you can and those things mean so much because it's immediate, it's right then, and that someone has heard you and can celebrate with you. And that's, again, like we talked about, it's about connection. And so I just think that it's important that you do that. And even now, that's important to me. It's important when I do struggle with emotions and with setbacks, because that still happens in my life. And, I'm getting older, and so my body is not cooperating in a lot of ways. And I just need to have people that are going to help me when I'm struggling with that. And it's still kind of hard for me to reach out, but I do have, like I said, several people that I do reach out to on a regular basis when I'm struggling. And so it's a lifelong process. You can't ever stop having those kinds of connections and celebrating your victories, because it's, that's going to happen until, we meet Jesus again. And so it's a process. You're not going to get done with this in 3 months or 6 months or a year. It's going to take time, and you have to be patient with yourself.
That's awesome. I have to, I guess life itself is a process, right?
Yes.
And I have to remember that. So this is, I was just telling somebody the other day, I'm very project oriented. I'd like to do things and be done. And you can't do that with life. So, or you can, but then you're dead. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, and you have to, healing is a lifelong process. It's a lifelong journey, and you are at different stages at it. Right now, healing is just maintaining for me, right? It's maintaining what I know. And so I don't slip back into those old patterns. And, I cannot even tell you the difference in how I see life and even how I interact with people. My daughter says I'm kinder. So I'm going to take her at her word, because I used to not be very kind. I was a little mean on occasion, so because I was just a mess. And so I'm not mean now. I do have frustrating moments, but I have people that call me on that, so it works out pretty well.
As you were talking, I think it's important to, number one, we need to recognize when people are trustworthy, not to have unrealistic expectations about other people, because everybody is human.
Exactly.
But recognize humans have issues, and some humans aren't the best repositories for your trust, right? So
exactly.
You have to understand where they're at, and realize that maybe because somebody holds a particular position where they should be somebody you can trust, they maybe not necessarily are.
Exactly.
So recognizing who it is you can trust, and then having people who are in different positions and perspectives. I think it can get, church is awesome. I think I kind of learned how to trust people, and especially after my divorce, like in my Bible study, having people, not that I told them all my drama, but just having people that were talking about life and their own struggles, and people you could pray with. But if that's all you have, then you can start putting too much dependence on that one particular group. And then if something happens in that group, then that could be more trauma on top of it.
Yeah, you have to be careful. You have to set boundaries on who you share things with. My favorite word.
Yeah.
Because boundaries are so important, and you have to really work on setting healthy boundaries. Because, one of the things that was really hard for me when I first began to have memories is I told everybody everything, all the details, and, that people can't handle that. And so you have to be very careful who you share things with, and be sure that they're in a place where they can hear it, and also that they're a trustworthy person that isn't going to go tell everybody or post it on social media that, hey, did you know that Charlotte da 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 da, right? Now, if I post it, then it's okay because I've shared it. But you have to be careful too with what you share. I think that is another really good point to think about, because so many people will share their most intimate secrets on social media, and that is really not a good plan, because it's not a good plan. You cannot, because for one thing, you can't take it back, and you don't know who's going to see it, and it's just really not, private things are private, and they need to stay that way and only be shared with a few people. I mean, you can share general things like I'm struggling right now, and even so, that should be within a closed and trusted group, not just, on your feed on Facebook. That's kind of like, no.
Not only that, not just like people, but they literally, there's AI programs that literally take all that data and use it to target you for, whether it's for selling a product.
Yeah, we laugh about it, but how many times have we been talking about something and then we get an advertisement for it on Facebook, and we've just been talking about it. So, yeah, it's really, you have to be smart, right? You have to be smart and wise.
Is just general information. Just because somebody asks for your birthday, you don't need to give it to them. There's only certain people that need to know your birthday. Other than that, you don't need people that you have never met before wishing you a happy birthday. Don't put your actual birthday up there. That's like social engineering. It leads straight to identity theft. People can use your
exactly. So you got to be wise.
Not related, but yeah.
You got to be wise with what you share on social media, and it's just, you just have to be very careful. Not paranoid, but careful.
Yeah. But I just this is just an FYI. Sometimes when sites ask for information that they really don't need to know, I just give them fake information because try to profile that.
Yeah.
So
anyway, so it's just important to be use wisdom with that, and not to share all your stuff with everybody. And text a friend, don't just put it on social media.
Or see them in person too.
Exactly. See them in person.
Yeah.
Or call them on the phone or something, because it's just, that's probably a number one boundary setting is watch what you share on social media. So, anyway.
Yeah.
So, I think that answered your question as far as the process. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, Charlotte, thanks so much for coming and talking about your devotional. And we do have some people on the live stream from your channel. So, but if you are not already following Charlotte, you can visit her website at charlottethomason.com, and she'll have links to all of her social media profiles. She's, like she said, she posts daily devotional. She's very consistent. Also, if some of the things that we've been talking about as far as like the workshops that she has done, some of them are you can watch on her YouTube channel, but she also has the workshop available. Like if you would like to watch the replay, is available in the shop on her website at charlottethomason.com. So are there individual segments?
Yeah, well, you can, they're individual segments, but you can buy all 6 of them as a bundle if you want. So there's 6 sessions, and they're very, very reasonably priced, because I wanted to make them available. They go from 50 cents to $3. So, and I think it's, I think it's $10 for the whole thing. So because my goal is to honor the people that participated, and not just and the people that actually purchased tickets to watch and to be there, but to also make it readily available, because my ultimate goal is for people to be able to benefit. And it was excellent. We had so many really wonderful segments with the guest speakers. So and you can get that on my website. Just go to the shop and they're available. So and they're digital, obviously digital, but also included in that is you can get a digital version of the workbook that we gave to people as well. So yeah,
it's an awesome deal. Also, what was I going to say? Oh, that so you're having equipped for the summer in June, and then you're equipped for recovery. Now, here's the thing: it's not like I think when people say recovery, they think it's like drugs or alcohol.
Exactly.
And it's not. That's not what it is. It's like
No. Mm-mm.
that's not what it is. So
No, the actual Equip for Recovery workshop is actually a live in-person event. This year it's going to be in Southeast Houston, Santa Fe, Texas area. I'm not real sure exactly where it's going to be, but it's going to be in this area versus in Austin. And basically it is for anyone who wants to add to their toolkit of dealing with any kind of situation that causes them distress. And I think that covers just about everybody, it's really toolkit for managing just the stressors of life. There's a segment on boundaries, one on journaling, one on self-care, one on accountability, and then just a general Q&A at the end. And it's interactive, and I think it's important for people to know they're not going to just come and listen to people talk, because it's very interactive. There's a short presentation, and then there's an activity that you interact with other people that are attending, and you actually get to practice whatever it is, whatever tool the presenter has taught you. So it's very interactive. We had a lot of good feedback from last year, and I'm looking forward to this year's presentation.
Yeah, and like I said, as Charlotte said, like anybody can benefit from it. If you have not experienced trauma after what we've been through in the last 3 years, then I think you must be like an android or something, because
that's true. That is true. We've all had a worldwide trauma over the last few years, for
Definitely,
sure. Yeah.
definitely.
So yeah, it's just very helpful. It just gives you very concrete tools, and the presenters are amazing. So I'm just really excited about it again. So. Yeah, and we'll be sharing more information about that. The tickets will go on sale probably in July, and that'll be September 9th, I think, maybe September 8th, whatever that Saturday is. So, yeah.
Yeah, but if you want to see the last one, she has a replay on her website. So, anyway, okay, well, again, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, and everybody go grab a copy of Charlotte's books.
Yeah, that would be great.
Thanks for watching. And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.